From the Parthenon of Iktinos and Callicrates to Sir Christopher Wren's St. Paul's Cathedral, great works of architecture have ensured their designers a place in history. But there have also been architects who became famous precisely for their buildings that were never built.
Alright, you sent your friend request.
One of the most fascinating examples of this is the 18th century French architect Étienne-Louis Boullée. As a teacher and theorist, he developed a distinctive style of abstract geometric forms, and at the end of his life, in the 1780s and 90s, produced a series of designs illustrating his ideas. Making up an almost encyclopedic representation of the necessary institutions for an ideal state, they were often of such a vast scale that they would have been impossible to build in real life. But their visionary nature has earned him his place in history, and still inspires architects today.
What is this? Dude, I forgot about the architecture of Étienne-Louis Boullée. Possible architecture.
Boullée was a reluctant architect.
Yeah, all good. You can just show it. I mean, I probably.
In 1728,
I'll probably look at it in detail, like after the stream or like later on. So, well, you can send me
Richard
whatever.
dreamt of becoming a painter, but at his father's insistence, turned to the more practical profession of architecture. Having finished his studies under Jacques-François Blondel in 1746, he went on to have a successful career as a designer of country and city houses in and around Paris, although only one of these, the Hôtel Alexandre, still exists. It was rather as a theorist and a teacher that he achieved lasting influence. He was a member of the Royal Academy of Architecture and worked as a professor for over 50 years of his life, influencing many great architects of his day.
Oh, you're such
In
a
this
kind, polite
position,
person.
he could explore his art
Thank
freely,
you.
drawing up designs that were unrestrained by
trying.
budgets or by the wishes of clients, who in his opinion rarely understood the genius of architects and had led the profession to lag behind other arts in its development. Through his beautifully rendered imaginary projects, Boullée could return to his love for painting and explore ideas about architecture.
Take your time when you don't stream.
His goal was to create buildings that would instinctively make us feel in a way that corresponded to
thanks a
their
lot for that.
nature
Yeah,
or
I think
purpose, and that would shape moral values in the
so. Yeah, I might also say, like, for now, this streaming thing is just like, you know, like a hobby thing, like just I play a lot of games in my free time, so I was just like, you know, might as well share it, you know, and maybe even get a community going or something. So that's like the only reason I started this. Just doing this as a hobby, as an interesting thing. Right now I'm done, you know. So, but if I do feel like this is gonna be a more serious thing, I will hit you up. Yeah, that's pretty cool to know, man. Girl, man, boy, whatever. It's an interaction, but have a nice day, honey. Hey, thank you. Thanks for typing. Actually, that was good to know. All right. Anyways, yeah, you have a nice day too.
public.
Enjoy your day.
To this end, he sought to discover the properties of volumes and their precise emotional effects on humans. This allowed him to go beyond merely copying the ancients and create new building types that sometimes had little or no precedent in the past.
Damn! Wait, is that his drawing? Wait, that's kind of cool. But yeah, this is something like this probably is impossible to do, if it is his, because like stairs. I mean, the stairs probably isn't even the hardest thing, right? Look at these trees. If you scale them up, like it looks like a big tree. This is a door for like. Holy, nah, this is huge.
At the very end of his career, Boullée wrote down his theories in a book called Essay on the Art of Architecture, in which he also explained his various designs, beginning with a project for a basilica.
Temples.
To be reduced to what is called necessity when designing a temple is to forget one's subject.
I think this guy just likes to do huge things.
Design for
I think that's what he likes.
Is of a suitably awesome scale. According
trying to
to
make
him,
up for
the
something.
mere sight of a temple to God or the Supreme Being should induce a sense of veneration and inspire profound respect, astonishment, and wonder. Had it been possible, he writes, it should appear to be the very universe itself. And what better way to produce this effect than through size? Size is inevitably allied with beauty, he claims, because even a volcano breathing fire and death inspires admiration and has a repulsive beauty.
You guys ever had the thought that big, gigantic things are fucking scary? I don't know, I went to the Eiffel Tower when I was like 12 or something, like years ago, right? Years ago. And I stood there, right? I stood in front of it, I stood under it. I stood far away from it. Far away, it just looks like nice, like you know, it's just a thingy in the middle, right? But once you get closer, you actually you realize how fucking huge that thing is. And then I don't know. I think that's what's called megalophobia or something, right? Where the fear of like big things, of huge things, and once I got closer, I couldn't look up. I was actually scared to look up. Whenever I got to a little bit of height, like looking up, right, a little bit of height, I just got. I was just overwhelmed, like you know, I was just like something something hit me. I couldn't look. I was like getting dizzy and I don't know. So while under it, right, I also tried looking up, and under it, you can see like it's like a hollow thing or something. Right? You can see under it, there's like a net or something, and it goes like all the way up. Yeah, I think you can see like all the way up, or like almost all the way up. And under it, I could not look under. I could not look up. It was so weird. It was such a weird feeling. It was like getting overwhelmed by the might of that thing, so to say. You know, it was crazy. I was almost falling. I was getting dizzy when I looked up. So I was like, I don't know how to explain it, man. It was fucking weird.
But it's
You
not
probably
enough for
know
a
if you
building
have
to
that
just
thing,
be
same thing,
big.
or if you
It
were
also
under it
has
and
to
looked
look
up.
big, an effect that is achieved by
Probably
the
know what I'm
choice
talking
and
about.
arrangement of its parts. For example, he makes use of columns, in his opinion the most magnificent part of architecture, to hide the supporting structure necessary to hold up the dome and vaulting, and increases their impact by extending them until their end is out of sight, and using immense rows of delicate columns instead of gigantic ones that would only make the space look smaller. Finally, light is channeled into the building through hidden casements, adding to a sense of mystery, and can be adjusted at will to provide the appropriate emotional impacts to visitors depending on the occasion. A similar sense of
But has
awe
he
and
ever
wonder
gotten
was the goal of this project
build a
for a
thing?
monument to the Supreme Being,
Was it all just
consisting of a domed building fronted by a grand portico and surrounded by terraces and sub-temples set in a dramatic mountainous landscape.
Dude, this looks sick. Absolutely, this looks absolutely terrifying as well, but it looks sick. Theater.
The theater is one of Boullée's more modest designs, and one that actually hoped to get built on the Place du Carrousel in central Paris. This site, he argued, would provide for easy access both by river and through adjacent streets, and the courtyards of the nearby Tuileries Palace could be used as parking space for carriages. It was supposed to be a freestanding building and designed as a monument to pleasure. He found an appropriate form to express this in the sphere, which he considered to be the most pleasing of all shapes, and surrounded it with Corinthian columns, the most elegant of the classical orders. On the inside we find a semicircular auditorium with spherical vaulting above it to provide good acoustics.
Yeah, you can see he likes
Furthermore,
his
solid
pillars
structure of the building
and circles.
isolates it from any outside noise. Great attention has also been given to avoiding the risk of fires breaking out, something that was all too common in early theaters. The building is almost entirely made of stone and brick, with only the floor and scenery consisting of flammable material. But even if these were to catch on fire, a reservoir of water has been placed beneath them, into which the burning planks would fall and be extinguished.
That's pretty big brain.
The architect also provided an ample number of escape routes, so that practically everyone could evacuate the building at once. Boullée boasted that if the theater got built, He would, at his own risk, ignite a floor and a set of scenery to demonstrate the security of his design.
Damn, what a giga chat. He's so... He trusted in his work. He was like, no way something goes
The outside
wrong.
decoration of a palace must be rich, noble, elegant, and above all, majestic. To achieve this in his palace for the sovereign, Boullée once again turned to an enormous scale.
Like, I don't know, something about these pictures make me so
He decided
uneasy.
to enclose the main building with the palaces of the court nobles, creating a grand complex designed as a consistent whole. He believed that the key to beauty in architecture was a balance between regularity, symmetry, and variety, and tried to accomplish this by using the site of the building to his advantage. Located in the hilly terrain of Saint-Germain-en-Laye near Paris, he placed the buildings on different heights to create variety without sacrificing the other desired qualities. He also made a proposal for the complete remodeling of the Palace of Versailles. Writing his essay on the art of architecture during the French Revolution, he felt the need to excuse the inclusion of these projects by noting that the book wasn't written only for a French audience, and that the designs could be useful as inspiration for other types of monuments.
He weaseled his way out of that.
The Palace of Justice, by contrast, was completely compatible with the new French Republic. It was conceived as a grand structure because, quote, the dwelling place of the throne of justice must be very imposing. But to clearly distinguish it from other palaces and show its function, Boullée turned to architectural poetry, or what later became known as architecture parlante, speaking architecture. The palace was laid out as a courthouse placed on top of a prison, turning it into one enormous metaphor for crime overwhelmed by the weight of justice.
Damn.
In his national palace, Boullée instead expressed its function by using the walls to proclaim France's constitutional laws in plain writing.
Oh
At their
shit.
base, he
Wait, that's
placed
sick.
2 rows
That's
of
cool.
figures representing the provinces of the country.
Dude, if he
The
actually...
attic on top of
I
the
mean...
building was decorated with a bas-relief showing national festivals, and crowning the entire palace is a statue representing freedom. The municipal palace would be used by district magistrates, but was also intended as a communal.
I mean, I imagine if he ever got to build one, like even one of his big ass things, right? Obviously that would be very, very popular. So it would probably even be one of the 7 wonders in the world, right? I'm assuming like this huge thing.
A place where the public could have their voices heard.
So I'm assuming he never got to build any of those.
Facade is meant to symbolize the, quote, virile character suitable to Republicans, and entrances have been placed all along it, facilitating the entry and exit
Which is pretty
of large
sad, I
numbers
guess.
of people. Guard posts placed at the 4 angles of the building's foundations are meant to proclaim metaphorically that the forces of public order are the basis of society.
Colosseum.
Following an attempt to improve on the design of the Colosseum in Rome, Boullée ended up creating a new building that dwarfs its ancient predecessor and anticipates the modern stadium. He believed that the building type of the ancient amphitheater should be revived in the modern era to serve as the venue for national festivals.
But what I wonder is if he drew these things, like if he modeled them with the thought that he would one day actually create them, or with the thought that, or just with the thought that, you know, maybe like this drawing is cool. What if we had something like this? That'd be cool, right? Or if it's like, number one priority was like actually building one. You know, that's what I'm wondering.
Previously, festivals in
These ones are huge
by a fraction of the population because of a lack of space. But in his new Colosseum, as many as 300,000 people could gather at once. That's half the city's population at the time, and more than twice the seating capacity of the largest stadium on Earth today.
Easy
this
clap.
Gigantic building was imagined as standing in the Étoile, the place where the Arc de Triomphe was later built.
But he didn't
The
do that,
reason for
right?
constructing it would have been the perceived moral benefits that national festivals would have on the people. Boullée, as he put it, wanted to reinstate morality through the lure of pleasure. The Colosseum could be used for various sports like chariot racing and to practice military maneuvers. It was also thought of as a place where paintings and models of building projects could be presented to the public, and where prizes could be awarded to different academies or to the hard-working farmer, recognizing in the midst of public acclaim his toil and virtue.
Military architecture.
Designed to withstand the ravages of war, military architecture is above all practical. But Boullée wanted to infuse it with the same kind of architectural poetry found in his civic buildings. His city gates were intended above all to give an impression of strength. They're made to look as sturdy as possible, and in this case he has placed statues of warriors on a stylobate at the bottom to remind any potential attacker that although the walls may be tall and imposing, what they should really be worried about are the inhabitants behind them. In another one, he piled up cannonballs at the base, surmounted by the armor of giant warriors, and used gun barrels to decorate the arched entrance.
Just decoration,
Interior
man.
walls, on the other hand, were made to reassure the citizens of their safety, being decorated in such a way that there seems to be 2 layers.
Imagine if he
He also
actually
designed a
built
fort
that.
consisting
That
of
would
a
have
round
been...
structure with 4 towers connected to it.
France would have been...
The gaps between them are blocked with stacks of cannonballs, and in front of the building stands a giant shield of Achilles.
Pyramid. Yeah, these drawings are so uneasy. Like they're making me so uneasy, man. They're like kind of
Of all the
terrifying.
imaginary buildings that Boullée designed, the most common type was perhaps
But
not
if he drew these by
surprisingly
hand,
the one
that's
with the least
sick.
practical
That's
requirements,
crazy.
and that had the most to do with poetry.
What a
The
shading
funerary
shit, man.
monument.
Well, I mean, I'm not an
Built
artist,
to
but
perpetuate the memory of the dead, these structures had to survive through the ages, and a good precedent to look back to was of course the pyramids of ancient Egypt, resembling mountains both in their form and durability. But not content to merely copy the old, he also added some new inventions to the genre. First of these was to use heavy forms and make them appear to be partially buried. When we imagine the complete shape in our minds, we can feel its weight on our shoulders and also get a sense of the dark ground below. In this way, he conveyed death through an emotional response to form. Some of his designs contribute to the debate in the closest to form.
So does he actually believe any sane person is going to walk up all these stairs? So this one is like, let's say he made it big, like, I don't know, like 250 wall, like 2.50 meters. Was that 5, 7, 10, 12, 15, 14, 20. So it's like, let's say this is around 30 to 30, right? 30 meters. 30, 60. Well, I mean, alright, whatever. I mean, I think these gates are bigger than 3 meters. Let's say it like that. Alright, I think this is, yeah.
Century of the creation of public cemeteries on the outskirts of towns, both as a hygienic measure to close overcrowded parish churchyards and to create moralizing landscapes where monuments could recall exemplary public figures and the sentiments of remembering the dead could be cultivated. Here, he has placed a funerary monument to a great general at the center of a vast complex, surrounded by walls into which are built chapels and charnel houses where the bones of the dead could be stored. A pyramidal-shaped gate leads you into the...
Actually, I think I know what it is. I think these drawings are so terrifying or like so uneasy, right? Or because I'm gonna say they're so isolating, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but I think these are like huge, right? So let's say it's huge, not a busy day, and you are like almost alone in there. I think that would be terrifying. And I think you would be so lonely, very depressive, very lonely, very isolated. I think you'd feel very isolated.
And inside the main monument is a large spherical room.
I think I'm choosing the wrong words though. So I mean, you know what I mean, right?
His second invention was what he called the architecture of shadows.
We don't need
Walking through a
words.
moonlit forest one night, he
We don't need
recalls
words,
how he was
you and me.
struck by the strong sense of melancholy produced in him
You
by
know
the
exactly
shadows
what I'm
of the
talking
trees,
about. I know that I can
something that
feel
he
it.
decided to try to recreate in architecture. The result was a somber monument made up of a flat, unadorned surface, its only decoration consisting of a play of shadows. These ideas about funerary monuments would be combined to create the most famous of all of his buildings.
The big sphere? Oh, yeah. This one looks absolutely fucking scary. Absolutely terrifying.
With the
Like the
cenotaph
Death
for Isaac
Star.
Newton, Boullée set out to honor the 17th century scientist by imagining a memorial that responded to the near hero worship that had grown up in the half-century since Newton's death. His reverence for the scientist can be seen in the description of the project, writing, quote, "Sublime mind, prodigious and profound genius, O Newton, with the range of your intelligence and the sublime nature of your genius, you have defined the shape of the earth. I have conceived the idea of enveloping you in your discovery." The cenotaph takes on the simple, unadorned shape of a sphere, buried within a three-tiered cylindrical base. Each level is planted with flowers and cypress trees associated with mourning in the ancient world.
Oh look, that's a dude. That's humans. That's a door. Yeah, so around 250, 3 meters maybe. Okay.
These forests appear like hedges compared to the size of the whole building, which rises taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Jesus.
Entering the monument through a long dark tunnel, you arrive in an inverted world. In daytime, the only sources of light in the vast hollow sphere are tiny holes piercing through the vaulting, laid out to correspond to the stars and planets in the sky.
That's sick.
This
That's
gives the
cool.
impression that Newton's tomb, the only material object we can perceive, is floating in the vastness of space.
Ooh, that's... Oh.
At night, on the other hand, light radiates from an enormous lantern suspended at the center of the sphere.
That is nice. That is nice.
Another of his most famous projects was his planned expansion of the Royal Library. In this case, he took a pragmatic approach, transforming an existing courtyard into a vaulted hall with tiers of bookshelves that could easily be used without the need for ladders.
That sounds
Intended
amazing.
to give a grand and noble impression,
Probably going to be very
the design
bad if
was
it rains.
inspired by the famous fresco of the School of Athens, painted by Raphael. An earlier project for a freestanding public library near the Place Vendôme was deemed too expensive to have any hope of being built. It would have been entered through a semicircular courtyard and consisted of long galleries stretching from a central point, allowing for easy service and surveillance.
How do I
of
turn off
visitors.
subtitle, motherfucker?
Among his designs was also that of a museum,
I'll turn it off, okay.
which, like the public library, was a new building type in the 18th
Or what do you
century.
mean? Or is it subtitle? Wait, there's no subtitle for me, right? It's probably YouTube subtitles that I put on. I don't know. I like putting them on.
To an enormous scale, he centered the building around a Hall of Fame, intended to contain the statues.
How do I turn on? Alright, motherfucker, shut. Dude, fuck off.
He also made attempts at triumphal arches, one integrating a large colonnade,
fuck
and
you.
another
I'll
based
keep
in the
them
form of
on.
a pyramid. The design for a bridge across the river Seine was a clear example of speaking architecture, its piers being made in the shape of boats that could have been used to...
No, you don't play Valorant?
Finally, the architect, famous for his grandiose designs, even made his own reconstruction of the Tower of Babel, taking the form of a pure cone on a cubic base, with a trail of figures winding in a...
The Tower of Babel wasn't the purpose of the tower was to reach God, right? So it was just like, I mean, I don't know the real story about it, but I think wasn't it like that? The purpose of the tower was just like make it high enough to reach God or something. I don't know if they ever built it, if they ever made it.
A symbol of hope for the restitution of a common language and a
No.
unified people.
Was it shove it up your ass? Shoosh! Rude? Excuse me?
When Étienne-Louis Boullée
Alright.
died in 1799, he still hadn't published his essay on the art of architecture. His passing went almost unnoticed, and to the extent that he was remembered, it was as a teacher, supporting his students like a father, wrote one biographer. his drawings remained largely unremarked on by scholars for
3
nearly a
a.m.,
century
eh?
and a half
Mongolian
before being
time, it is what
rediscovered
it
in the
is.
1900s. Boullée's work began to attract the attention of art historians in the 20s, and the essay was finally published and translated into English in 1953.
Right,
In his
right.
desire to create a unique, original architecture appropriate to an ideal new social order, Boullée anticipated similar concerns in the 20th century, and his works inspired generations of architects of the post-war period. Today, he is recognized as one of the most visionary architects of the 18th century.
I think if this guy ever, like ever, not even the sphere or anything, if like ever any one of his buildings were made, amazing. Dude, this motherfucker would be recognized all around the world. Everyone would know him. Every single person in the world would know him. Beep boop. Hey, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. And leave a like, subscribe, comment. I do reply. And maybe I'll see you around. See ya!